The Florida swing has begun. This week, we head on down to Palm Beach Gardens for the Cognizant Classic. Welcome back to the 19th hole, everybody. Jake, as always, joined this week by Ian live on site from Palm Beach Gardens. Ian, how are you doing this week?
Yeah, all good, man. Got into South Florida last night, so yeah, soaking in. I mean, it wasn't quite what I expected. It was like 61 degrees today as a high, but certainly better than I think most of the country's doing. So yeah, can't complain. Got a PGA tournament 45 minutes up the road for me right now, so can't wait to get on site and kick off the Florida swing, hopefully with a bang.
You absolutely love to see it. And something we also love to see is you out there joining the IBT Golf family. The IBT Golf family is our brand new chance to gain access to chatting with our analysts, memorabilia giveaways, as well as our full betting cards. Our free membership gains you access to the chats, memorabilia giveaways, and other contests that we run, such as our PGA One and Done contest, and the upgraded membership, which is just $3.99 per month or $36 for the year, gets you full access to all of our betting cards, everything that we are playing that week. And it also gains you access to our football family, racing family, and entertainment family. So it's a great option if you want to continue to be part of the family over here. You can join that for free at in-betweenmedia.com/chat. or with the link in the episode description. And as I just brought up our PGA One and Done contest, just want to do a quick rundown of our leaderboards thus far. Yes, you're reading that right. My brother is in first place, not me. Tough scene for the guy on screen. Followed up by Anthony, aka my friend Tony, sitting at 811,000 earned. Trash Sandwiches, the great producer of this podcast, sitting in third place, just a hair under 800,000. We have Timbo Slice sitting at 694K, myself 569, Jed at 457, Seth at 439, Gopher _JD at 376. One of our lovely co-hosts, Mike, sitting at 344, and then 5 others sitting at sub 300,000. Let's hope I can correct it this week and gain some ground on my brother, because that is not great for the brand. But maybe it's also great for the brand. It runs in the family. I played golf with him this like a week and a half ago now. He sucks. I'm the good golfer in the family still. Don't you worry. But with that being said, everything important has been covered. We have kept our business in line. What do you say we head on over to the news with the news Niblick? Starting off, we have to pay the toll to the Bridgeman, Jacob Bridgeman, getting his first professional or first PGA Tour win, I should say, this past week at Riviera. Just a great performance all the way around. Sunday, he's got a thing for Sundays. On some Sundays, he's ending up on the beach trying to hit it off to tie to make it to second place. In other weeks, like this past week, he is just trying to shoot par, essentially. 1 over ended up being the number that worked for him, but a great tournament through and through. I've been in on Bridgeman quite a bit this year. He's played some really strong golf. Were you surprised to see him win, Ian, or are you glad that he was able to get that win under his belt at the ripe young age of 26?
Yeah, glad. Maybe the wrong word, because I was on Rory as an outright last week, so was kind of hoping for the miracle comeback. But yeah, in terms of Bridgman himself, super impressive win. I think a lot of us, especially with the way he started the year, would have expected maybe the win to come quite soon. But I don't think Riviera was a spot that a lot of us had outlined as a place for him. I know he was. I mean, heading into when DraftKings opened lines on Saturday evening for the Cognizant, he was the favorite. So maybe with his run-out finish here last year, people would have considered this is the spot for him. So for him to come 1 week early, and especially in a signature series event at a venue like Riviera, I think speaks a lot for his future upside. So kind of a funny story. The last time I was at the Cognizant Classic, I talked to Jacob Bridgman's dad because he was in a group with my favorite golfer, Rico Hoey, the only Filipino golfer on the PGA Tour. So we just got to talking. I think he thought that I was like Rico's brother or something like that, but I never corrected him. But yeah, me and Mr. Bridgman had a nice time. He's a Clemson guy, so I grew up in North Carolina. So yeah, I think he's from Inman, South Carolina, just down the road from Charlotte. So yeah, awesome to see. I mean, one of the many premier young talents we have in the game, and certainly made his mark on the season already with a win at Riviera. So yeah, big things I'm sure to come for Bridgman. He's already got that built-in superpower. I mean, he's one of the best putters on the PGA Tour, has been for a year plus now. And now it seems like the ball striking's really come together to kind of match with that. So yeah, with the 4 days he just put up, 1800 Riviera is not an easy score to attain. So I doubt this is the last time we'll see him on the Sunday leaderboard.
100%. Yeah, as you mentioned with the ball striking, led the field in strokes gained approach, 5.985 strokes gained over the 4 days. As you mentioned, the superpower of the putter, 7.3 strokes gained over the 4 days of the event with the putter as well. I mean, we said it, you're going to have to hit greens to win at Riviera. He tied for the lead in the field in greens and regulation percentage. That alone is going to put you in a really great spot at Riv, given that their average green and regulation percentage is about 57. So to be 20% better, 20% over that number, always going to put you in a great spot. So I also did not have an outright on him. So as you mentioned, glad, probably not the right word, but happy to see the young man get a win. Yeah. And then speaking on the superpower that he has, we got to talk about the Spyder-men into the Putterverse. I'm going with dad jokes for these titles for as long as I can. And as long as they keep being terrible, I'm going to keep doing them. But TaylorMade Spyders have won 5 of the 6 tournaments this year. Every win on the PGA Tour this year has been won with a non-blade putter. Obviously, the mallet, the Spyder specifically, is what really saw the ascension of Scottie Scheffler. Do you think that his ascension with that type of putter is inspiring a lot of people to go away from the traditional blade shape putter? Or do you just think it's just, in general, the technology, the forgiveness that you get with this style of putter is the route that we're going to see more players going, just because these are guys who want every advantage that they can get?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's not just Scottie, to your point, with the 5 winners so far this year, but coincidentally, the guy that more or less recommended the Spyder to him, Rory, has talked in pretty great detail about why he switched eventually from the blade style putter he used for the first half of his career into the Spyder. Again, talk about the forgiveness on offset or hits. And, if you can just gain that little bit of an advantage where you maybe don't hit a great putt that still rolls online, of course, that's going to be huge down the stretch of, a golf tournament where you're competing with the best players in the world. So yeah, not really surprised to see kind of the popularity the mallets have taken over these last few years. And yeah, maybe from a handicapping standpoint, I might have to pay a bit more attention to some gear switches down the road because, yeah, certainly some highly publicized ones through the years. And, we I don't think we're going to talk about him in the player profiles, but I know Brooks Koepka got a pretty high profile switch to the Spyder X ahead of the Phoenix Open, which didn't really help him in Scottsdale, but maybe the progression comes 1 week later here in Palm Beach Gardens.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said, 5 of the 6 winners, I was actually wrong. You and I were talking about it a little bit before the show. Justin Rose is actually the only winner this year not to be using a TaylorMade Spyder. He's using the Scotty Cameron Phantom T5. But even, that's more blade-like than a Spyder, that's for sure. But it's clear that a lot of players are going the route of forgiveness. And we're seeing it throughout the bag, right? Like Rory ditched blades for cavity backs, like more forgiving irons in a sense. We're seeing it more commonly with players having split sets where they're keeping some of the blade muscle back type irons and the short irons and longer irons. They're looking for forgiveness. We've gotten out of really the club manufacturers bragging about distance with the new drivers and new woods that they're releasing. It's more about retaining distance on off-center hits. Like it's clear that forgiveness has been something that players are appreciating more. And I just think with the advancements in technology too, like for a lot of players, a mallet style putter sits more closed traditionally, or they've traditionally been flow necks versus blades have, or blade style putters have traditionally been more of like the notch neck or plumber necks. And I think now, just with these manufacturers being willing to do whatever works for the community there, like you're seeing more mallets with plumber style necks, which is something that appeals to my eye. It's a little bit less closed. So I just think we're going to continue to see the equipment make developments and continue to grow and give these players more options. And it's going to be painful for the non-gearheads out there, but we're getting to a point where we are going to have to start watching the equipment these guys are using a little bit more closely. If a guy who's been a solid but not great putter makes a switch into something a little bit forgiving and it works for him, like maybe they're in for a good year. Who knows? We're going to have to watch.
Certainly gives me hope for a lot of my favorite losers down the odds board who seem to gain 10 strokes ball striking every single week and still finish outside the top 20 because they can't putt. So might have to whisper Enrico Hoey's ear to go in the TaylorMade truck this week and try one of those new Spyders out.
Him and a few other people. One guy for sure that we are going to talk about kind of fits that mold there. But since we are talking so much about PGA National, let's dive into the caddy notes. PGA National, located in the same town that Ian is in, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, playing at a par 71, hair over 7,100 yards. Bermuda greens, the fairways, though, typically Bermuda. We're seeing more overseeded rye. Billy Horschel made some big talking points about that this week. Some of the calling cards of PGA National, you're going to have tight landing areas off the tee, heavy volume of forced layup shots with many dog legs throughout the course as well. Very minimal wedge play, 89% of approach shots coming from 125 yards or farther out. So very few 60 degrees into greens. You don't see that much anyway, so much as these guys spin the ball, but you're going to see it even less here. What are some of the other notes that you have for us on PGA National, Ian?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty fitting way to start the Florida swing. I mean, when you think of a Florida golf course, you think of a lot of water, think of positional driving test and Bermuda grass greens. So check across the board there. Of course, over the last kind of couple of years, PGA National's gotten away from, I think, its larger identity within the golf space as being one of the harder tests on the PGA Tour. We've seen winners of 19 and 17 under the last two seasons, which, I mean, when I was growing up, if you got a 10 under par around PGA National, you were winning by daylight. So clearly some things have changed and conditions have gotten a little softer. The last 2 years haven't had as much wind as maybe we've historically seen around Palm Beach Gardens. But yeah, in general, I mean, it's pretty straightforward strategically. Like, really, your main strategy this week is just not hit it in the water. So, what you talked about, the forced layups is one of the least driver heavy golf courses that we have on tour. So maybe a little bit de-emphasizing, just general off the tee play. But yeah, certainly need to be on target into these greens, especially with winning scores climbing into the high teens. You got to hit your GIRs this week and, hope to roll a hot putter on these surfaces.
100%. Also, as you brought up some of the defense of the course, plenty of bunkers throughout, water on basically every hole. I think it's 17 of the 18 holes have water hazard in play. Could be 18 of 18 for all I know.
Yeah, I mean, for you and I, there's water on one, but for these guys, not really. So I would say outside of 1, 2, and 1, 2, and I guess 10, those would be the three that I would say have no water. But 15, I think, out of 18.
Yeah, so certainly, that's how you're going to see some of those blow up holes on this courses. And you can't talk about the defense of PGA National without talking about the weather. Hopefully for you, the forecast that I saw is not what is sticking around, but I saw some thunderstorms certainly going to play a part in the forecast this week. As with weather, we know it can change at the drop of the hat. If you're in Florida, it usually rains once a day. the winds will pick up sometime. But from the forecast I'm seeing right now, you're going to see, mid to high 70s throughout. On Thursday, really no rain to speak of, maybe a little bit towards the very end of the golf day there. However, on Friday, you have chances of rain throughout. Saturday and Sunday both have thunderstorms in the forecast. Wind is going to be a factor here as well. Traditionally, that said, not looking too crazy wind wise. Sunday probably looks like it's going to be the worst weather day overall. But when it comes to, the weather here, it certainly affects the scores. How does it affect the scores now that this is the easiest scoring version of PGA National that we've ever seen? That still remains to be seen, but certainly something to keep in mind here. When it comes to the stats that you're looking at for the venue this week, what did you put some weight on?
Like I said, certainly iron play. I would say, especially 150 to 200. You mentioned how there's very few wedge shots around this golf course, which is true. It's very much a middle iron test, a la Riviera, a la TPC Scottsdale, kind of that really, really key range. From 150 to 200 sees about 50% of historical approach shots. So that'd be the key kind of ball striking split I use. And then for the first time since Sony, we're going to pure Bermuda grass greens. So away from the Poana of the West Coast, bit different of a profile this week. You have to read the grain. Typically they run a little bit faster than some of the greens we see on the West Coast as well. So certainly some, for the last few weeks, we've been kind of leaning to the California narrative. I think this week, there's certainly some merit to some of the guys that went to SEC schools, grew up in Florida, grew up in the Southeast, and are used to these kind of greens because it's very similar in the way that that inherent comfort tends to continue every year on these similar kind of Southeastern golf courses. So I think it's pretty simple this week. If you can find the guy that hits his irons the best, and you're going to be fine because historically speaking, these around the green complexes are super easy. It's not that difficult to get the ball up and down at PGA National. And like we've already mentioned, the driver's a little bit out of your hands as well this week with so many club down chances off the tee.
100%. Yeah, my model, very similar. Focus on strokes gained total, both players over their last 36 rounds and their last 36 rounds on both comparative courses and other Florida swing courses. Just as you mentioned, when it comes to Bermuda, most of these courses play very similar in terms of a ball striking perspective. As always, birdies are better percentage as well as bogey avoidance. Par 4 birdie or better. I did add some extra weight to this week. I did include driver distance. I do want to say, mostly because historically that has mattered here. That said, the last few years, it hasn't been as impactful. I do think it can still be a separator for players this week. I don't have a ton of weighting on it, but it is something that I included in there. Just wanted to throw that out there for the people. Don't have it's not too crazy by any means. It's very light weighting.
And I'll even add, I think that's actually pretty well founded. They have made some changes. Maybe the PGA Tour's heard the less than great response to this tournament the last couple of years. They've lengthened the second hole by 20 yards. It's now like a 480-yard par 4. They've lengthened the par 5 18th by 30 yards. It's now close to 600 yards on the scorecard. So, and now it's a par 71 as opposed to the par 70 that we've been used to seeing for the last, at least before 2 years ago, the 20 years before that. 3 par 5s, some holes. They've actually upped the rough length a little bit from 2.5 to 3 inches as well. So it does seem like they're trying to put the teeth a little bit back into PGA National. I don't think they'll get quite all the way there without really firming the greens up and getting some wind. But certainly I think you can make the case that driving distance can play a much more crucial role on at least a few of the holes in this routing.
100%. As we mentioned, we have seen that winning score go down or up, however you want. I still never know how to say it. Like the more strokes under par, does that go up? Is it down? I don't know.
Just go easier or more difficult. That's usually my kind of cop out. Yeah.
Smart. The course has definitely played easier, as you've mentioned, over the last couple of years. With that being said, I have the projected winning score at 18 under par. Would you say that's fair? Or do you think I'm being too gracious and we're going to see a bounce back given some of the changes the PGA Tour has made? Or do you think it's fair just based off of the last couple of years at this event?
I think that's probably fair. I would lean certainly more towards like the 17 and 18 versus like, the 10 to 12 that we saw for a decade plus before the last couple of years. So Yeah, I think there's a chance it could play more difficult if the rough does actually lend itself to having a stronger penalty. You mentioned some wind, maybe that dries the golf course out a little bit, but yeah, if I had to put my money on it, it's going to take at least 1,500, 1,600 to get the job done this week.
And then last year, we saw the cut sit at 4 under par. In 2024, we saw that cut line at just 1 under par. So obviously, only 2 strokes of difference in the final score there, but a pretty sizable jump in terms of what got you through the cut each of the 2 years. Do you anticipate a higher cut line? That is something traditionally we have seen so far this year. 4 of the 5 events have gone over the historic cut line average of the events. So we have seen, higher scoring thus far in some of these events this year. Do you, with the anticipation of this course continuing to play the way that it has, do you see that cut line moving any particular way, or where would you set it personally?
Yeah, I don't think even par is going to be a very good score this week. So, yeah, I think 2 to 3 under is probably my guess. I think it maybe plays fractionally more difficult than the 4 unders we've seen in the last couple of years, but yeah, certainly wouldn't feel very comfortable if you're sitting around even par on a Friday afternoon.
Definitely. I'm in lockstep with you there, sitting at 3 under par. But before we start talking about some of our favorite or preferred plays this week, I need to give a shout out to our sponsor, WannaParlay. WannaParlay creates fun and exciting competitions that connect people. It embodies the joy of winning, the heartbreak of almost winning, and all the other emotions you'll experience during competition. From the brains of 2 former Kansas State college football players, it's all about stacking legs, competing with real sports lovers like yourselves and me, and getting real cash wins every single day. You can 1,000 extra money and cash out fast. If you are ready to get in the game and flex those parlay legs, download the app for iOS or Android and get a 100% match bonus up to $250 when you use code IBT at signup. That is right. That's code IBT to get a 100% deposit match up to $250 at WannaParlay. The link is in the episode description. But Mike, what do you say we start getting our clubs ready, getting these plays ready, and let's get to the club twirls. So let's address the elephant in the room. This is not the strongest field. I think that's pretty fair to say, especially after last week's winner, Jacob Bridgeman, perpetual competitor over the last year or so, Ben Griffin and Adam Scott have all withdrawn from this tournament. That leaves Ryan Gerard at 26th in the world as the highest ranked player in the field, and one of, I believe, only 6 players even in the top 50 that are in this field this week. So it's fair to say that these, there's no Scotty in this event. There's no crazy jump between the favorite and the board, which right now is Ryan Gerard at most books, or Shane Lowry, who's second. Not a huge gap between the two. But what is your overall impression of the lines that we've seen so far this week?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask, because I think I'm kind of getting the leftovers of what's been picked off on Monday. As I said, I was in kind of transit for most of Monday, so I was getting updates a little later, and then of course didn't have access to the same rotation of books I usually have. So yeah, definitely lost a lot of value. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of betting cards on Twitter or in Discord and the like that are gonna have much better numbers than I am on some of the guys I like. But yeah, in general, I think you said it, in fields that maybe don't include like an out-and-out superstar and are quite flat through the board, I tend to take a more kind of quantity over quality approach, where I'm comfortable taking long shots in the field like this because I don't have to worry about them beating a top 5 player in the world. Right. I mean, you said the 2 favorites are Ryan Gerard, who, I think is extremely talented, but maybe unproven in terms of winning an event of this caliber, and then Shane Lowry, who hasn't won them on the PGA Tour stateside in over 10 years, I believe, since 2015 Bridgestone was the last time he won on U.S. soil. So, yeah, without those like Rory's, Scotty's, Tommy's of the world at the top of this odds board, I think you can take a lot of liberties down the board and take some shots on guys that maybe you just have long-term faith in or are playing quite well. And you believe have the potential to mix this week, because truly there's it's very, very possible that we wake up on Sunday morning and it's kind of the wild, wild west at the top of this leaderboard.
100%. So speaking on Ryan Gerard, as we mentioned, currently the favorite across most books. The 5 that I have pulled up here, he is the favorite or tied with Lowry in all of them. This line has actually moved since I put this together. He's sitting at 18.5 to 1 on DraftKings, the best line available that I can see. At this line, I think it's fair that he's the favorite here. Highest ranked golfer in the field, has played some strong golf within the last 6 months, has tailed off a bit. It's not, the heater that he necessarily started the year on, but still played well. Irons have been solid. Driver's been pretty good over the last few weeks still. Where do you sit on Gerard? Are you interested at this number, or are you starting your card a little bit farther down the board?
Yeah, it's tough to come here on a Tuesday, considering I think he was 26, 27 to 1 a couple days ago before all the WDs. So, yeah, personally, he won't be on my outright card. For me, Gerard is I included him in this list because he's probably my favorite in terms of just the top of the board. If you're looking at like a cornerstone for a DraftKings lineup, or in head-to-head matchups against a Lowry or against one of the other guys at the top of this odds board, I would prefer Gerard. I just like his floor seating outcome. Of course, Ryan, one of the more highly celebrated amateurs we had in the state of North Carolina in his youth. He was a top 10 junior in the world in the mid 2010s. And we talk about like all these superstar names at the top of the PGA Tour rankings, and they all come with amateur pedigree. And Gerard, I think, is someone that maybe doesn't get the same credit because he maybe didn't have the success in college that a guy like a Scheffler or some of these other superstars have had, but very much has the amateur pedigree that we see in a lot of these superstar names. And he's starting to kind of finally put it all together here to end 2025 and start 2026. Of course, his big coming out party in the professional game was right here 3 years ago. Money qualified into the Honda Classic in 2023. Ultimately came up just a few shots short of the Kurt Cole playoff that year. But again, was able to springboard that into status on the big stage. And now, 2 years later, following a breakout 2025 that saw him record his first win at the Barracuda and his first top 10 in the major, now he becomes the headliner in maybe the event that gave him his start. So he enters, of course, the Florida Swing on with an impressive run of golf. He logged 3 straight runner-up finishes in Mauritius, Oahu, and Palm Springs before coming 11th at Torrey Pines and earning, of course, entry into the Signature Series in 2026. The ball striking, as you mentioned, has been great. He's gained over 4.5 strokes and approaching 5 his last 8 starts. Finished 4th in last week's field with his iron play at Riviera against a much stronger caliber field than what he'll see this week. And since the start of last summer, he ranks 2nd in the field on a per round basis on approach. Also, extremely reliable driver of the golf ball. He's ranked above field average in driving accuracy in 10 of his last 11 starts. And again, North Carolina roots. He's got the Bermuda grass down pat, and he's actually gained strokes putting in 5 of 6 worldwide starts, which is quite rare for Gerard. That was kind of one of the facets of the game that certainly held him back early in his career. So, just playing immensely good golf. I think he's a phenomenal course fit. I just think his baseline projection is maybe as high as anybody in this field. So, whether you want to bet him at 20 to 1, I don't have a problem with that. Or include him in the DraftKings lineup, play on matchups and prop position bets. I think he's a really safe profile up and down the board.
Yeah, I would agree with especially the last part of the statement that you made there. He's been a staple so far of my DFS lineups that I've put together. I feel more comfortable with him. Probably like top 10 is probably as high as I would go personally on Gerard. But as you mentioned, great course fit. His worst stat in the model here, as I ran it, it's basically like, oh, he's in 10th, he's in 12th, he's in 11th, he's in 17th, he's in 10th. And then it's like, surprisingly, in this field, over his last 36 rounds, he's 79th in strokes gained on Bermuda. So, while historically, this has been his best putting surface historically. This year, he certainly has putt well on Poana thus far. But traditionally, he is a better Bermuda putter. If he can, show that some of these gains that he's made with the putter early this year can continue to carry over, he makes a lot of sense. 2 players that I think.
What I will say.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just to kind of wrap things up. some things that I kind of will bring up because I tend to favor the ball strikers this week, and a lot of that reason is because we talked about the easiness of the round, the green complexes. The green complexes themselves at PGA National are really flat. They've ranked as the inside the bottom 6 in terms of strokes gained putting difficulty, or outside as one of the 6 easiest basically courses to gain strokes putting on last season. So I think we've seen through the years like guys like Joe Highsmith, Eric Van Rooyen, Doug Gim, they've all not been tremendously good putters week in, week out in the PGA Tour, have found success on these greens. And I think that's a thread that I'm going to be, or a narrative I'm going to be using this week to maybe justify some lesser putters week over week. Because I do think these are greens that you don't really have to possess an incredible amount of putting skill to navigate.
Yeah. And for me with the putting weight, it was my lowest weighted stat this week. Like obviously putting on Bermuda matters. It's something you want to include in the model, but as you mentioned, one of the easier green complexes to compete on. And for me, it's more of a, like, as long as you're not in the bottom quarter, bottom 20% of putters in the field, I'm willing to take it. Like you could probably putt just fine here.
Yeah. I mean, if Doug Gim, if Doug Gim can gain like 5 strokes putting in a week, I find it hard to believe that, there's not many people in this field that have that same ceiling outcome. So of course, like I would rather you have a higher putting baseline, but it is a stat I'm willing to kind of look through if some of the other auxiliary stats look good in my numbers.
100%. Moving on, I have both of the Hojgaards. Both of these guys are strong statistical profiles for this venue. And a weird thing when I was putting my model together, if you're Danish, you're like guaranteed top 20 in my model at this venue for whatever reason. All 4 of the Danes that are in attendance are in the top 20 of my model. That being Rasmus Nergaard Peterson, Rasmus Hojgaard, Thorbjorn Olesen, and Nicolai Højgaard. Or if you also have Thor in your name, Michael Thorbjornsson is high up in my model as well. So maybe it's something, maybe it's not, but I have both of the Højgaards as great options this week. Like if I were to bet the top of the board on the outright, I personally right now I lean Nicolai a little bit more than Rasmus, but 2 guys who are very, very close here. Nicolai is going off at 21.5 to 1 currently. Rasmus going off at 23.5 to 1. Both of those on DraftKings. But I mean, both of these guys statistically line up really well for this venue. When it comes to Nicolai, for example, he leads the field in strokes gained total over his last 36 professional rounds, leads the field in ball striking over that same span, 14th in birdies or better. Since I included driving distance, I'll bring up that he's second in the field behind only Michael Brennan in driving distance as well. And even the stats where he doesn't pop, he's top half of the field in everything. In every single statistical category that I considered important this week. When it comes to this venue, like you mentioned, putting can kind of be your weakest strength. He's 58th in the field. So again, still top half of the field in strokes gained putting on Bermuda. A lot of it lines up really well. You can make a lot of the same points for Rasmus. Main difference is Nicolai is a better ball striker. Rasmus is a better putter.
Yeah. Past
that, they're very similar players. Rasmus is a little bit better of a scorer recently. That has flipped. Nicolai's been a little bit better over the last, 24 or so rounds. Traditionally, Rasmus has been a better scorer, but Nicolai is a better avoider of bogeys, which is why I do prefer him a little bit to Rasmus. But again, this is like a coin flip in terms of the betting odds. And I think it's a coin flip if you're going to start your card, and anybody who's 25 to 1 or higher, I think either one of these wouldn't be a bad choice to make.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you. I prefer Nicolai to Rasmus as well. I just see a much higher ceiling with the approach play out of Nicolai, and I think he's proven a bit more stateside than Rasmus has. A lot of Rasmus's long-term numbers come from overseas, which still count, but I think there is something to be said for Nicolai having a bit more experience down the stretch of PGA Tour events. He just came 3rd at the Phoenix Open. If not for a triple pokey on the second hole there on Sunday, I think he very much has a chance to win that week. So, Nicolai certainly trending, Rasmus playing well as well. But there are some minus 110, minus 110 twin versus twin matchups, and I do lean Nicolai in that proposition.
You and me both. And it's just, again, their names are just so fun to say. I just love saying Hojgaard. It's fun. I'm finally pronouncing it right too.
Yeah,
which
I mean,
makes it
still,
awesome.
it's crazy. They're only 24 years old too. Like it feels like
Yeah.
we've known them for so long, and I mean, they're younger than a lot of the PGA Tour rookies coming out because they just went straight to the professional ranks, and
Right. They're like
it's-
Akshay in that aspect. Like I feel like I've been hearing Akshay's name for 10 years, and the dude's
Yeah.
20, also 24, 25.
I think he's 23.
Oh, got him.
Yeah,
Old.
it's just like Hideki's like 32 years old, which is crazy, but he came in as a baby. Neiman, same thing. He's like 27. So yeah, all these guys that came straight out of college or straight out of high school and went straight to the pro ranks. Yeah, it's really impressive to see them, bloom at such a young age, and our favorites to win a PGA Tour event at 24 years old.
Insanity. I picked the wrong sport to focus on when I was in high school and college. I will put it that way. Next up on the board, I did forget to make a graphic for them, so I apologize. But Aaron Rai is a name that you presented to me. Currently coming off the board at 42-1 on DraftKings. Obviously, I'm kind of always in on Rai to an extent. Like he's never one of my favorites, but one of the better ball strikers on tour, especially over the last 36 rounds, fifth in the field in that metric. What is it about his name at this number that kind of popped out to you?
Yeah, so unlike Gerard that I endorse but haven't bet at 19-20-1, I have actually clicked Aaron Rai. I got a 45-1 on him, and as you said, he's still available above 40-1 in multiple spots here. But yeah, I mean down this board and really across this field, I'm looking for elite tools. And Aaron Rai happens to possess two tools that I think are very important this week. He is the most prodigious driver of the golf ball in terms of accuracy in this field. I mean, he ranks number one in good drive percentage, number one in driving accuracy percentage. We know week in, week out, if there's one thing that you can set your watch to, it's Aaron Rai hitting fairways, which I think, of course, a little bit de-emphasized this week with the lesser amount of drivers you're going to see hit, but still, I think he has the acumen to keep the ball out of harm's way. But maybe more importantly, I think is the iron play. He is maybe the best, not just in this field, but in terms of the entire PGA Tour, and from 150 to 200 yards. He is first in GR percentage in that range. In fact, nobody on the entire PGA Tour has been as precise with the middle iron in that sample. He's logged a 78.7% GR rate from that range since the start of 2025. And if you just isolate for the start of 2026, he's hit over 90% of his greens from 150 to 200 yards, which certainly important this week as a lot of these greenside surrounds are surrounded by water as opposed to rough on a normal week. So you couple those two ball striking just cornerstones with the fact that, again, PGA National ranks among the easiest golf courses on tour to gain strokes putting. His only career PGA Tour win to date has come on another positional Bermuda grass golf course in Sedgefield. And, he's got 6 worldwide wins to his name, which is something that I don't think a lot of guys, even at the top of this odds board, can boast that sort of pedigree long term. So, he's got a legit championship pedigree. I mean, just 4 months ago, he beat Tommy Fleetwood, Rory McIlroy, Robert McIntyre, Ludwig Goldberg, Shane Lowry at the Abu Dhabi Championship. So, we don't have to scroll that far back for his latest win. Right. And, he won't have to go through nearly that same sort of field to win this title. So again, 40-1, I think is getting a little disrespected given his stature, in my opinion, in the game. And, I mean, let's not forget, if not for a really bad final round at Riviera, he's very much in the mix to top 5 or top 10 last week too. So playing well, the long-term numbers, I think, really suit this place. And I just have a high opinion overall of his game.
Definitely. I'm going to sneeze. This is what this part of the year is doing to me, ladies and gentlemen. I clicked on the wrong name as well. We are doing great over here. Next up on the board for me is Max McGreevy. Guy was in on last week, didn't work out so well. However, for a lot of the same reasons, I'm gonna continue to go to the Max McGreevy. Well, he actually, believe it or not, #1 player in my model this week. Certainly wasn't the name I was expecting to see at the top, but then you start to scroll across the stats and it makes sense. Second in strokes gained total over his last 36 rounds, 12th in strokes gained ball striking over his last 36, 20th putting on Bermuda, 5th in birdies are better and bogey avoidance, 30th in par 4 birdies are better, plays very well on our comparative courses as well. When you get down that line and everything just starts to line up to the effect that it does here, I think it makes a lot of sense to go that route. Yes, the numbers haven't been that great as of late. Yes, he has not won on the PGA Tour. However, in a weak field event, like we mentioned earlier, some of these longer shot plays, like when there's no Rory, Scotty, Ben Griffin, Xander Schauffele, any of those top names, it truly is an event that anybody can win if they catch 3-4 rounds of fire. And McGreevy's overall statistical profile suggests that he's really close to doing that. What has held him back thus far this year has been the putter. He has not putt well. However, just last year, T4 here, gained strokes with all of the clubs throughout the bag. One of the more accurate players in the field as well, 6% over field accuracy there. So I think a lot lines up to him making a lot of sense.
Yeah, you lay out a really good case. I'm looking at his data golf profile now, very balanced across the board. I think McGreevy's just a name that, for whatever reason, I just tend to look through on a given week. I don't think I've ever bet him in my life. So yeah, I've seen a lot of people on him, and certainly I think there's a good reason for it. I guess I just tend to have my favorites in the same range. So likely just going to skip over him again, but I can absolutely understand. My numbers liked him as well, just across the board.
Definitely. Speaking on the M&M train, next up for me, Mac Meissner. Sitting here, number 2 in my model, 49-1. Anytime you start to get close to 50 and you statistically line up with the course, I'm interested. Again, one of the second in strokes gained total, 7th in strokes gained total, 21st in ball striking, top 30 in putting, top 30 or top 2 in bogey avoidance, top 10 on comparative courses, top 40 in both driving distance and birdie or better percentage. Scrambling, as we mentioned, not super important this week. However, he rates out well in that category as additionally. So again, just a statistical profile that I think lines up really well for the venue. And at this number, I'm in. This number has shifted a little bit. It's now 47-1 on Meissner, but last performance that we saw from him at the Phoenix Open, gained an absurd amount of strokes with the putter, was able to gain strokes around the green and on approach as well. Didn't have his best stuff with the driver, hit it long, did not hit it straight, to say the least. But again, we're starting to get into the range of, if you line up statistically and your number's pretty solid, I'm going to be a little interested.
Yeah, you're now the second host I've had tonight that has touted Mac Meissner on call with me, so I might have to look even deeper into the stats here, but yeah, I do agree with you. I think what stands out for me about Meissner is just he doesn't really have a lot of holes in his game, and even maybe more bullish is the fact that a lot of his top results have come, I think, on pretty corollary courses to PGA National. He came runner-up at Wyndham, which I just use as a comp for Aaron Rai. Top 15 at 3M Open, which is another waterlogged venue where you have to hit your irons well and putt. 14 at the Santos Farms. 18th at the RSM Classic, both shorter Bermuda grass golf courses. Charles Schwab, top 5, Myrtle Beach, T13. So, yeah, a lot of things line up in terms of some of the comp courses I'm looking at this week, and certainly the skill set looks balanced enough to where he can certainly present a really high floor this week for sure.
And then this is the guy I was talking about earlier. Johnny Keefer, let's get that Scotty out of the bag. Let's get you into a tailor-made Spyder, because you need some help on the putting greens, but man, can you stripe an iron shot. Gained strokes with the irons, at least 4 strokes per event so far this year in all 4 tournaments that he started. Hasn't missed a cut to start the year. Hits the driver really well. Hits the irons really well. Get the other clubs out of his hand. Get some new ones in the bag, please, Johnny. I beg of you. Top 20 in the field in ball striking, 33rd in scoring. Scores really well on par 4s. Hits the driver a mile and hits it straight, and plays well on comparative courses. Dude can't putt right now. That's what it is with Johnny Keefer. But again, 50-ish range, 52-1 is the best odds I was able to find for him. Still sitting at that over on DraftKings. Do not bet him on FanDuel. please, I beg of you. He's 33-1 on FanDuel and 52-1 on DraftKings. Just download the other app if you are interested, like I am, in Johnny Keefer this week. But Keefer also has, some of kind of what we talked about with just the familiarity with the surfaces that we are looking at here. He's historically been a solid player on this type of surface. Bermuda grass is something that he has played well in throughout his career. I just think it lines up. Like a lot of things are lining up for him, being able to make 4 straight cuts, play this well with the irons. As we mentioned with this course, if you putt fine, you can win here. And even though I've flat out said he can't putt, he's 59th in the field in strokes gained putting on Bermuda. That's not terrible.
You're speaking my language now, man. We talked about like McGreevy and Meissner, kind of the unsexy, all around floor guys. I'm right there with you with Keefer. I haven't made the bet yet, but yeah, he's another guy that I feel like I missed the better numbers on early in the week, but I think I'm willing to kind of chase him down the board on a golf course like this. You mentioned the struggles with the putting, which are absolutely true. I think it is worth mentioning, though, that, this is a guy that he didn't just come straight out of college. Like, we have the sample size at the professional ranks for Keefer. Legitimately, maybe a case is the best Korn Ferry Tour season of all time in 2025. He's actually the only player in the history of that tour to ever record a sub 68 scoring average. And he did that while ranking 4th in total driving, 12th in GIR percentage, 2nd in scrambling, and 10th in putting average. So he did it across the board last year on the Korn Ferry Tour. And I think when just in general, if you can record a scoring average of under 4 under par, especially on the setups the Korn Ferry Tour has, I tend to give you a little bit of relief for maybe a poor start to the putting season, poor putting start to your PGA Tour season, especially going to like brand new venues like Torrey Pines, like Scottsdale, that aren't exactly the easiest greens to putt on. But to your point, man, the ball strike has been great. If you just isolate for 2025, his 4 starts from Sony to WM, he's gained over 1.8 strokes ball striking per round in that stretch, which is a mark only surpassed to this point by Rory McIlroy and Siwoo Kim. So he's literally 3rd on the entire PGA Tour strokes gained per round with a driver and irons. Again, has the pedigree, the number 1 player on the Korn Ferry Tour last season, 25 years old, former top 10 amateur in the world. Everything that I would want in a field like this that kind of has a lot of ambiguous upside with guys that have been on tour for 4, 5, 6 years and we haven't seen it yet. I'm more inclined to go with the devil I don't know than the devil I do in a lot of cases. And Keefer, certainly, I think, especially a 50-1 price tag, makes a lot of sense. I don't think there's any doubt what his upside is, and it's to win the golf tournament on Sunday afternoon.
Love it. I love Johnny Keefer. Moving on, another younger player. I was noticing a trend here. We're talking about some younger guys. We're going to break that trend soon here. But Davis Ford, is a guy that you are in on this week. Best odds I found for him, 115-1. What's it about Ford's game that's got you interested, or is it just the number here?
It's partially the number. When you talk about pedigree, amateur pedigree coming out into this 2026 season, he was, I think, one of the top prospects coming out. He's one of just 3 players in history to attain that number 1 ranking in the PGA Tour University. He joins Ludvig Åberg and Michael Thorbjornsen as those 3 guys to gain full status on the PGA Tour from their college career alone. Of course, his college resume was elite. He set UNC scoring records and scoring average, cumulative score to par, and with 7 individual wins. Of course,
including 3 straight in 2025.
What's that?
3 straight collegiate wins and wins in 3 straight events to secure his status on the PGA Tour for this season.
Yeah. And the thing is, the early season was rocky for him, coming straight from UNC to the PGA Tour. It didn't start well. He missed his first 8 cuts, failed to finish better than 44th across his first 10 starts. But there were translatable gifts that Ford possessed right off the bat. He is already one of the best drivers of the golf ball we have on tour. He's actually number 1 in total driving on the PGA Tour in 2026 so far. He's one of those accurate players we have in the game. But maybe more importantly, the irons are beginning to catch up for Ford. Across 7 measured rounds in 2026, he's gained nearly 0.8 of a shot per round on approach, a number that puts him right between Hideki Matsuyama and Victor Hovland for 2026, 2 pretty damn good iron players. And again, from that key range of 150 to 200 yards, he actually sits third in this field so far in 2026 when it comes to getting strokes from that key approach range. So it's a small sample as it is with Keefer, as it is with a lot of these young players. But whenever you have a player that has the pedigree that Ford does, I'm willing to buy in, especially while his price is still inflated in the triple digits in a field like this. And again, very similar to a Gerard, Southeastern upbringing. He was born in Georgia, went to UNC, clear comfort on Bermuda grass. I think he profiles as a really compelling dark horse this year with some of the early season returns we've seen from T.D. Green. So yeah, as opposed to a lot of guys in this field that I don't really have a great sense of their upside, even at 50, 60 to 1, you scroll down all the way into the triple digits, and I think Ford is very, very capable of contending in this event.
Yeah, he was a name, kind of like you brought up with McGreevy. Like, he's a guy whose name I see, I know the pedigree, and I know everything, but like just naturally scroll past it for whatever reason. So it wasn't until you sent your plays over to me that I really like look at where he ended up in my model. Top 40 in my model, but as you scroll through, it's like it's really the putter that's holding him back in this model that I ran. Fourth in strokes gained ball striking over his last 36 rounds. Scrambling birdies are better percentage, bogey avoidance, par 4 birdies are better, driving distance, top 40 in all of those numbers, top half of the field and strokes gained total on comparison courses or comparative courses as well. So, it's really just the putter holding him back. So, I wasn't in on Ford going into today, but between you being in on him and the statistical profile that he does have for the course, certainly at this number, I've spent $2 in worse ways.
Exactly. Yeah. You're not having to like blow your bankroll on 100 to 1 long shots. So yeah, that's probably gonna end up being my strategy with some of the numbers at the top of the board getting away from me on the week. I've started my car with Aaron Wright 45 to 1, and then I'm likely going to be adding a handful of guys from kind of 50 to 150. Then I'll probably make up the thick end of my exposure. I'm just not all that interested in chasing numbers kind of off the board in a field this flat.
100%. Next up for you, another longer shot play this week. Lee Hodges, getting him at 100 to 1 on FanDuel as of right now. Statistically lines up again. We're kind of running through the same things here. Really, statistically, the only thing holding him back in my model is driving distance. He's 96 in the field in that metric, but again, a name that I scroll over probably a little too often. What is it about Hodges for you this week, especially coming off of one of the worst iron weeks I've ever seen that he had over at the Farmers in his last start on the PGA Tour?
Yeah, I acknowledge the last start isn't maybe ideal for Hodges, but you can kind of explain that away with the fact that, look, I mean, Torrey Pines is a 7,800-yard golf course. You're going to hit a lot of long irons, and as you mentioned, Hodges not the longest off the tee. So I do feel as though a setup like Torrey that really just asks you to hit, just throws a bunch of 490-yard par fours in your face. He's just at a disadvantage kind of from the word go there. So I'm willing to kind of write off that initial start. We haven't talked a ton about course history this week, which I don't think is particularly bad, because the last two champions here, Highsmith and Eckroat, haven't exactly come in with any kind of semblance of course history. 2023, we had runner Barrett Cole and fourth place finisher Ryan Gerard both attain those finishes on debut. So this isn't really a course I tend to lean too much into course history.
Right.
But yeah, Hodges has shown an affinity for these kind of waterlogged positional golf courses, right? His only career PGA Tour win came at TBT Twin Cities, maybe the only golf course on tour with more water than PGA National. He's recorded finishes of 9th and 14th over his last 3 seasons here at Palm Beach Gardens. So does have an established affinity for this layout in particular. Top 20 iron player on tour in terms of general approach splits over his last 50 rounds, and long-term for my key approach range from 150 to 200. He's also Alabama kid. He's proven himself very comfortable on Bermuda grass greens, gained over nearly half a stroke per round over the course of his career. And most recently, of course, logged the best putting week of his entire professional career at the Sony Open on Bermuda grass greens, plus 7.75 strokes gained in those 4 rounds. So again, a guy sitting over 100 to 1 at most shops. I think there's just far too much long-term pedigree to ignore on these type of tracks. And of course, we're just like 2 starts removed from him going back-to-back, finishing 4th and 6th at Sea Island and Wildlife, 2 Bermuda grass golf courses. So the last 2 times he's been on the surface, he's contended. And again, I don't think the field strength is that much different from what we saw during the swing season. So I think 100 to 1's a little bit irresponsible from the bookmakers this week on a player with his pedigree.
Agreed there. And speaking of a guy whose number, I want to say it's disrespectful. I want to say it's too far, but I get it just given how his season has gone thus far. But Luke Clanton, 130-1 at his home course. This is Luke Clanton's home course. He's played hundreds of rounds at this course. And again, a guy who has one of the best potentially college pedigrees. His last season in college recorded 4 wins, as well as multiple other top 10, top 15 finishes. Certainly has not had the best start to his career as a professional, with his best placing being a T29 at the Sanderson Farms Championship. However, there's something about getting on a familiar course that can reset everything for a player. We've seen it time and time again with players throughout their career. And it's not like we haven't seen Luke Clanton compete in PGA Tour events. The RSM Classic, he has a T2 there. 5th at the Wyndham, T2 at John Deere Classic, T10 at Rocket Mortgage. And yes, we all know the start to his professional career has not been awesome, but 130-1, count me in, even if the numbers don't necessarily say that it should be in. He's still a solid ball striker. He's 33rd in the field in strokes gained ball striking. He's still long with the driver, top 40 in the field there. Even his bad stats are hovering, on the low end of average, but around field average generally here. But I'm leaning into the fact that you're getting a guy at his home course. You're getting a guy at his home track. Of course, he knows like the back of his hand, a course that I've watched him go out and go 6 under through 7 on YouTube Golf. It's YouTube Golf. I'm aware it's not the same, but this guy can score at this course. And 130-1 is, again, I've spent $2 in worse ways. If I spend $2 on Luke Clanton this week at 130-1 and he wins, I can go buy myself a Pokemon booster box, rip 36 packs and see if I can make my money back. And if I don't, Luke Clanton got me that booster box and I feel good about it.
I'm with you. I think it is encouraging to see his approach splits come back. I mean, it was pretty dark times there for most of the summer where he really couldn't buy a positive week on approach or on the greens or around the greens for most of that stretch. So, yeah, he's gained strokes on approach in 3 of his first 3 starts of 2026. Of course, you already outlined the comfort he has around here. So, yeah, certainly. I mean, the short-term splits aren't going to look good for Clanton. I mean, it's been a really bad kind of 6 to 8 months, but I mean, you fast forward 12 or you rewind 12 months ago and what was he, 35-40-1 in this field as an amateur against a much better field at PGA National. So, yeah, certainly. I mean, I think you can. There are worse bets to make than Clanton to kind of reemerge as the talent we all know him to be here just a few minutes from home base. So, yeah, selfishly, I would love to as someone going to the event over the weekend, I would love nothing more than to see Clanton in contention, just because I think he outside of maybe Koepka, he'd probably be the fan favorite or the most supported player of the week in this field. So yeah, Clanton, I mean, 130-1, of course, if things come together for him, he could absolutely win this golf tournament. So I'm not gonna argue against that.
I love anytime somebody loves Luke Clanton with me. But guys, that is the end of our show here. Ian, remind the people where they can find you and your work.
Yeah, at @flag_hunting as posted here on this video feed. That's where I post all my articles, all the betting picks. Of course, my co-host Chris does all the NASCAR stuff as well. So NASCAR back in full effect over in February. I already had the Daytona, had Atlanta, going to a road course this week. So yeah, a lot of content coming up from both of us, and that's where I find everything. I do a live show every single Monday night with Matt Miller on the RotoBaller PGA YouTube channel, and of course right over there for RotoBaller. But you can find everything at @flag_hunting.
Awesome. And as always, you can find me at Parry_FF. If you're still watching, make sure you subscribe to the channel, not just the In Between Media channel, but our new 19th Hole channel as well. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the content that we put out. You can follow me on Twitter at Parry_FF. I write DFS articles for the PGA as well over at Fantasy Alarm. So make sure to check that out if you're in these DFS streets. with me. But guys, that has been another episode of the 19th hole, and we will see you all for our next tee time.